Part 47. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 463. The Emperor's hidden guard intercepted Qi Ziyuan's letter sent by Fige. The Emperor opened it and was silent for a while, then handed the letter to the dark guard for him to put away again. The contents of Qi Ziyuan's letter satisfied him very much. For his brother's stupid behavior, Qi Ziyuan scolded him, and first told him that he shouldn't ask for those things from the Zhang family and the Shu family, and that he should make a decision based on the situation of Mrs. Li and the child. If Mrs. Li and the child are fine, then let the two families owe a favor. If something happens, Mrs. Li and the child will not be able to compensate for those things, so let him talk to them later. The letter also said that the stupidest thing Qi Heiran did was to give those things to the emperor. Qi Ziyuan taught Qi Heiran that some things are secrets among courtiers and cannot be announced. If the emperor is dragged in carelessly, it will not be the Zhang family and the Shu family that will be offended, but most of the officialdom. Even though Qi Ziyuan is a great official in the frontier, it will be difficult to protect him under public anger. Therefore, he asked Qi Heiran to keep his tail between his legs in the days to come. Find a way to leave Beijing and return to Jingzhou Mansion. At least he can protect him here. At the end of the letter, Qi Ziyuan was probably out of anger, and scolded Qi Heiran again, asking him to listen to Fan Zijian's opinion more. The emperor was very satisfied with Qi Ziyuan's reaction, which was somewhat different from what he expected, but within the acceptable range, but he was very interested in one thing he said. It turns out that there are secrets between the courtiers that he can't let him know. Because Qi Heiran was only 17 or 18 years old and had no orthodox education, he directly entered the officialdom, and was not even tempered. He was always under the protection of Qi Ziyuan, and he only needed to fight and make military achievements to be promoted, and he might not even need to go to the battlefield. Military merits can automatically fall on his head, so it is normal not to know these official rules. The emperor showed a pleasant smile. It seems that Qi Heiran was raised by Qi Ziyuan to have a pure personality, and lawlessness is not bad for him. The emperor suddenly wanted to know Qi Heiran's reaction after receiving the letter, so he asked the hidden guards who stayed in the village to pay close attention. How did Qi Heiran know that the emperor was so perverted? Even if he knew that someone might be watching him secretly, he couldn't pretend to pay attention all the time, so when he got the letter from his eldest brother, he shouted dissatisfied, "How can I blame me for this? Told me." Mu Yangling sat on the chair indifferently and said, "Isn't this letter sent out? Brother may not have sent it to you." Qi Heiran thought about it for a while, but he was dissatisfied when he saw that Mu Yangling didn't care, and said, "You've always been around Xiaobao these days, and you almost forgot about your husband and me." Mu Yangling rolled his eyes, and coaxed him insincerely, "You are still jealous with the child at such an age, that's fine, I'll go out with you tomorrow to play." Qi Heiran gritted his teeth, rolled his eyes and said, "I don't want you to go out with me to play, why don't we have a baby too?" "No," Mu Yangling flatly refused, and seeing Qi Heiran's face sunk, black as carbon, he explained in a low voice, "I'm still young." Qi Heiran didn't believe it. "What's wrong with you? You don't want to give birth to me." Qi Heiran only felt a dull pain in his heart, and then acid water gushed out from the wound opened by the blunt knife. Mu Yangling was unwilling to give birth to him. In the eyes of a man, this is no different from not liking him. Seeing that Qi Heiran's eyes were red, Mu Yangling asked in surprise, "What's wrong with you?" She didn't say anything excessive. Why did this man almost cry? Qi Heiran tried his best to suppress the tears in his eyes, and asked, "You don't want to give birth to your father, so who do you want to give birth to?" Mu Yangling shouted, "When did I say that I don't want to have a baby for you? Don't blame me, I mean I'm still young, and I don't want to have a baby yet." "I don't believe it. 13-year-old mothers can be found everywhere. You will be 15 this year." Mu Yangling shouted, "What's 15? I won't be 15 until September, and I'm 14 years old and 10 months old now. Chi Heiran curled his lips in disdain, and said, Su Sui is already 16. Mu Yangling shouted angrily, you must call me old, don't you know that it is dangerous to have a child at a young age, not only me, but also the child. I thought about what is wrong with giving birth to a child at the age of 16? Isn't it just waiting for another year? Chi Heiran was taken aback for a moment, thinking of Li Shi and Xiaobao. Fuzi asked in his heart, are you scared by your sister-in-law giving birth to Xiaobao? The more Chi Heiran talked, the more he felt that this was the case, and he didn't blame Mu Yangling anymore, so he quickly stepped forward to hug her and said, don't be afraid, you are different from your sister-in-law, and nothing will happen. Trust me, you are born, the child will be safe and sound. Mu Yangling said irritably, it's not because of my sister-in-law and Xiaobao, it's because of an accident. I made up my mind to have another child after 16. Mu Yangling glanced at Chi Heiran and said, I originally thought I would marry you later, isn't it because of an accident that I married you so early? Chi Heiran was stunned for a moment, and then said dissatisfied, who instilled this in you? Tomorrow I will take you to a nearby village. Ask me, how many children are safely born at the age of 13 or 14? But because of their young age, many children died of infirmity, Mu Yangling murmured. That's because their family is poor and can't afford a doctor or medicine. Does our family seem to lack this? And my master's son must be stronger than him. Mu Yangling looked at Chi Heiran suspiciously, why do you suddenly want me to have a baby so much? Chi Heiran was silent for a moment, then hugged her and said in a low voice, I want a child, and, according to the secret letter of the eldest brother, I will find a chance to transfer me back to Jingzhou Mansion after a while. Aling, you, if I had a child with me, I wouldn't be so lonely. Mu Yangling didn't expect this to be the reason. She knew that Chi Heiran could not always stay in the capital, not to mention that Chi Xiu would never let him delay his future for his own safety, even the emperor would not let Chi Heiran sit idle for so long. General Yuan has so many sons, didn't the emperor also release them to the army? Chi Xiuyuan is just 2 brothers, he will naturally not stop others after observing, after all, what does who lacks most is generals. But Mu Yangling always felt that parting should be far away, but he didn't expect it to be so close. Seeing that the wife in his arms was silent, Chi Heiran lowered his head to look at her. Seeing that Mu Yangling was in a daze, as if he hadn't reacted, Chi Heiran immediately felt better, and tightened his embrace again. Aling really can't bear him. Mu Yangling couldn't stop Chi Heiran from leaving. Thinking that he might not see him again in 4 or 5 years, he was moved by the proposal of having a child, and poked Chi Heiran's chest and said, then we will a child. Chi Heiran was overjoyed immediately, picked up the man and went to the Kong to make a man. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 464. The hidden guards sent by the emperor restrained a little because there were Chi family's guards in the village, and they stayed a little far away, but they still heard Chi Heiran's first roar. Afterwards, the voice became lower. I thought I could only hear the sentence, but who knew that the couple had a quarrel? Ugly, the hidden guards still pricked up their ears. Therefore, the emperor soon knew that Chi Heiran and his wife had quarreled about having a child. The emperor curled his lips and said disdainfully, what's the fuss about this kind of thing? Could it be that Mrs. Mu can still drink contraceptive pills? Mrs. Mu is also surprised, who doesn't look forward to giving birth to her husband's child as soon as possible to gain a firm foothold. It's different from others, no wonder Chi Heiran is angry. Are you more strange? You are stricter with a 4th-rank young general than with Prime Minister Qin, and have people watch him 12 hours a day. If you don't know, you might think you have something else on your mind. The dark guard complained in his heart. The emperor threw down the secret letter, waved his hand and said, okay, just let people watch from a distance, Don't let the Qi family find out. If you accidentally find out, just deal with it as usual." The emperor tilted his head, said, "Let's lead to Prime Minister Qin." The dark guard responded. Seeing that he was the only one left in the palace, the emperor spread his arms and legs on the dragon chair and lamented that Qi Heiran is better. Following him can always get some unexpected news. Unlike staring at Prime Minister Qin, what's the use? It's not that he didn't doubt, that he didn't have any doubts before, but seeing that Prime Minister Qin was always in a hurry, he thought that the other party was really devoted to him, and he didn't mind some corruption and bribery from him. After all, the other party only loves money, unlike General Yuan, who holds an army of hundreds of thousands and threatens his status at all times. But now it seems that it's not that Qin Xiang is clean, but that he is too clean. This is what scares the emperor the most. If he hadn't stared at the Zhang family and the Shu family this time, he might not have known that half of his court was in the hands of Prime Minister Qin. In contrast, Qi Heiran, who always makes small mistakes and hasn't correctly realized the dangers of the officialdom, is cuter. The emperor already has a plan in his heart, intending to use this rookie to pull out those rules and secret passages in the officialdom that he doesn't know about. That being the case, Qi Heiran can no longer be idle. The emperor had already thought a lot in a short period of time. Linen City was always under his nose. According to reports from the secret guards who monitored Zhang Cheng, many people gave him gifts during the annual report, and most of the things would pass through Zhang Cheng again. Cheng's hands flowed into Qin Xiangfu. He also sent people to monitor Qin Xiang's mansion before, and only saw a small number of officials who came to Beijing from other places to visit Qin Xiang with gifts. He didn't take it seriously because he didn't pay attention to those things. But judging from the list obtained from Zhang Cheng, Prime Minister Qin's income is almost half of the treasury. The emperor sits on the whole world. If his world has 10,000 taels of silver, then Prime Minister Qin will take 10 taels from it, and he won't even move his eyelids. But Qin Xiang took 5,000 from it at once, plus what he got from other places he couldn't see. It is less than 1%, but Qin Xiang can only enter and exit, and the accumulation of wealth can be seen over time. The emperor is very upset when he thinks of this. Coupled with the fact that Qin Xiang controls half of the dynasty, it will give him an illusion of who is the emperor. The rest of the half-dynasty officials still always sing against him, the emperor, and this feeling is even stronger in contrast. Most of the money was donated from the local government. Compared with the situation in Linen City, the emperor has realized that the country is no longer completely under his control. Except for the military power and court, the local government is gradually moving away from him. Slipped from his hand. Even though General Yuan, Qi Ziyuan, and the others were disobedient, they were only concerned with external issues. Internally, they carried out the orders he issued very thoroughly. In comparison, Prime Minister Qin, who has always been obedient, is much more terrifying. The emperor wanted to know the situation of the place urgently, so he thought, if Qi Heiran, a fool with a backer and a holy favor, was put in the place, what kind of information would he get? As soon as this idea came out, the emperor couldn't wait to prepare a place for Qi Heiran to take office. In addition to Jiangnan, a land of fish, rice, and water, the Jinghu area is equally important as a strategic location. It is also a large food production base and its economy is developing very well. The emperor wanted to know whether Prime Minister Qin had affected Jinghu, which he always felt like an arm area. The emperor was ready, and he was only waiting for the opportunity to send Qi Heiran out, and the vacancy was not something he wanted to have. Even if he was the emperor, he couldn't say that one was one. Anyway, Qi Heiran also wants to have a child now, so that's good, give the couple more time. The emperor felt that he was really a good emperor, and even this kind of thing was considered by his subordinates. How did Qi Heiran know what the emperor was thinking? He still feels that he must go back to West Camp. Even if he doesn't go to his elder brother's West Camp, he will probably go to his two uncles or General UN. Before he came, his elder brother had discussed it with him. Just choose these three places. In order to get Mu Yangling pregnant before he left, Chi Heiran worked hard every night to create a human being. If it wasn't for the fact that there were too many people in the village, Chi Heiran wouldn't want to get up during the day. At this time, Chi Heiran felt that it was better for the two of them to live together, since sister-in-law and nephew were really inconsiderate. Mu Yangling followed him around for half a month, then suddenly came back to his senses, stopped him and said, "This is wrong, we have to calculate the time to have sex, and we can't get pregnant if we keep messing around like this." Mu Yangling thinks there is a safe period and ovulation period or something. She doesn't know how to calculate the ovulation period, but she probably knows the calculation of the safe period. Then subtracting the safe period and the days before and after the menstrual event, isn't it the ovulation period? Mu Yangling praised her wit, and was about to calculate the date when she picked up a pen. Chi Heiran pulled her pen and said, "Why is it so troublesome, can I just work hard every day?" Mu Yangling kicked him and said, "What do you know? It is the most scientific to calculate the date. I heard that it is best to take a rest 2 days before intercourse." Chi Heiran curled his lips in disdain, "That's someone else, do you need to rest?" Mu Yangling looked at the arrogant Chi Heiran and was speechless, but he had already decided that no matter what he said tonight, Chi Heiran would not succeed. Chi Heiran was a little annoyed when he went out, thinking that the mother-in-law in the mansion must have taught Mu Yangling badly, otherwise how would she know about such things? When I came back for dinner at night, Chi Heiran took out a jar of fruit wine. It was sweet, and Mu Yangling's saliva was secreting. Chi Heiran said complacently, "I went to the village to run horses today, and a tenant farmer gave it to me, saying it was from my family. Brood, do you want to drink it?" "Want?" Mrs. Lee smiled and said, "I want to drink too, but the doctor told me not to drink alcohol, so you can use it yourself." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 465. The fruit wine was soft and sweet, and Mu Yangling couldn't help but drank too much. No matter how much alcohol it had, it was still wine. What's more, in this life, Mu Yangling hadn't drunk much, although he didn't get drunk, but let Chi Heiran carry him back to the room in a daze. Chi Heiran chuckled, kissed Mu Yangling on the face, and said complacently, "I told you not to let me go to bed." Mu Yangling stared at Chi Heiran with drunken eyes for a while, then suddenly turned around and rolled inside, pulled off the thin quilt and covered it, and fell asleep obediently. Chi Heiran opened his mouth wide. Is this the end? Unconvinced, he pressed on Mu Yangling, kissed her carelessly, and said, "Don't sleep yet, I have something to tell you." Mu Yangling kicked him down in a daze, and muttered, "It's getting dark, I'm going to sleep." Reluctantly, Chi Heiran climbed up again, and stretched out his hand to untie her clothes. Originally, he just wanted to make trouble with her, but he became more and more angry, so he turned off the lamp, and completely pressed on Mu Yangling. When Mu Yangling woke up the next day, seeing Chi Heiran entangled her naked, she felt a little headache. Thinking of the fruit wine last night, she felt that she had fallen into his tricks. She didn't really want to be born at this time. "Children, after thinking about it, I decided to let nature take its course and not toss about it." Seeing that Mu Yangling let him mess around completely, Chi Heiran became happy, thinking that she had finally figured it out and wanted to have a child with him. The two of them lived happily in their world, and Mrs. Lee was very busy taking care of her body and raising her children, so their life happily slipped forward by 2 months, and Xiaobao will be 3 months old. On the morning of the 3rd month, Mu Yangling and Qi Heiran went to Mrs. Li's place together, waiting for the imperial doctor to examine Xiaobao. The imperial doctor and the doctor have been staying in Zhuangzi for the past 3 months. Through observation, they were sure that the child was fine a month earlier. After a long time, the two old men got together and talked for a long time, and finally came to the conclusion that Xiaobao's intelligence is fine, although his body is a little weak, but it was caused by premature birth and long-term suffocation in the mother's womb. After conditioning, it will not be a problem to catch up with full-term healthy children in the future. The child is easy to take care of, because of his young age, the body damage is not particularly serious, and it is conditioned by the nurse's milk supply, so most of the poison has stayed in the nurse's body. But Li Jinghua was different, she was seriously damaged. The imperial doctor and the doctor could only vaguely give a consoling answer after discussing for a long time. Pay attention to recuperation, maybe she can recover health and be able to conceive in the future. Qi Heiran and Mu Yangling were a little sad. Mu Yangling was sad that Li Jinghua was physically damaged at a young age, and Qi Heiran was sad that the eldest brother might only have one legitimate son in his life. But Li Jinghua is the strongest and the most open-minded, because she has already prepared for the worst after giving birth. Now she only hopes to raise Xiaobao, and also hopes for Qi Xiaoyuan's second child. The age can be a little older than Xiaobao, so that the position of the eldest son can be more stable. The imperial doctor left several prescriptions for recuperation, so he left and returned to the palace to return to his orders. The doctor continued to stay in Zhuangzi. Xiaobao declared that he was fine, and the ban was naturally lifted. Mu Yangling began to take Xiaobao to play in the Zhuangzi from time to time. At first Li Jinghua wanted to stop him, but seeing that Xiaobao was not only more lively after 2 days away, but even his face was more rosy, so he didn't stop him anymore. Mu Yangling said with a smile, "Sister-in-law, don't worry about your children being naughty. The more naughty children are, the smarter they are. Take them out often and let them watch more things. The faster their brains develop." Li Jinghua smiled and said, "You know again, when it comes to raising children, it's the same thing. My brothers and sisters were brought up by me," Mu Yangling said proudly. "My Bowen was 3 points weaker than Xiaobao since he was a child. I took him all over the village in just 100 days, but you look, he can't keep up with others physically, but no one can match his intelligence." Li Jinghua also knew that she had a 10-year-old Tongshen younger brother, who seemed to have taken the college exam this year, but did not know if he passed the exam. If he passed, he would be a 10-year-old scholar, indeed a genius. Li Jinghua asked, "When will he go to take the exam?" "I participated once this year and failed." His husband told him to study for 2 more years before giving it a try. "Anyway, he is still young and has so many things to do. Don't worry." Li Jinghua nodded slightly, looked at Xiaobao who was shaking his head, and said with a smile, "From now on, our little treasure will ask you to teach me more." Mu Yangling kissed Xiaobao, and said with a smile, "Sister-in-law, don't worry about me. From now on, our Xiaobao will definitely be the most heroic in the world." Seeing that Mu Yangling really loves Xiaobao, and that Xiaobao also likes Mu Yangling, Li Jinghua couldn't help being happy. "We've been out for a long time, and Xiaobao is almost 100 days old, let's go back, we must give him do it for 100 days. Little treasure didn't do it for 3 full moons, and all kinds of speculations in Beijing continued, because the Qi family had an unhappy fight with the Zhang family, the Shu family and the Zhou family because of this matter, so it spread widely, and there were even casinos to gamble, and there were bets that Li's family was critically ill. Yes, there are bets that the child is critically ill, and the odds are very small. The one with the highest odds is that Li and the child will be safe." Qi Heiran was so angry that his nose was smoking at the beginning, and then Mu Yangling said lightly, "The health of the sister-in-law and the child does not depend on the bets of those outside, why are you so anxious? If you really get angry, then treat it as nothing. Listen, he suppressed his anger. The fire pressure is down, but this matter can't be counted that way. The child's situation was unclear at the time, but judging from his performance, health accounted for a large proportion. In a fit of anger, Chi Heiran bet all the cash he could get, and even ran to Fan Zijian for his pocket money. The money was looted and bet. Mu Yangling made fun of Chi Heiran for being too serious about this matter, turned around and took the money and asked Fei Bai to bet on it. In order to vote for the good of the master, and also to earn some extra money, Fei Bai came back and said with a smile, "Fourth master, fourth grandma, the little one has been honored by the masters and also bet 20 taels." Mu Yangling smiled and didn't speak, but Chi Heiran curled his lips in disdain and said, "You are too poor, you only put 20 taels in deposit, don't say you are my servant when you go out." He said. From Mu Yangling's drawer Li took out 10 taels of silver to reward him, and asked him to buy it again. Mu Yangling didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but Fei Bai happily kowtowed to the two of them 3 times. The servant got 3 taels a month, which was his wages for 3 months and 10 days. Originally, the imperial doctor returned to Beijing a few days ago. They thought that the casino should be closed. After all, they could know the specific situation from the imperial doctor. The bets bought had higher odds, and many of the family members began to contact Wu to ask how long Qi Ziyuan would be reunited. Even Qi Feng and Wu Shi sent people to ask what happened to Li Shi and the child. Mu Yangling said that Li Shi and the child are fine for the time being, and she is telling the truth, because Li Shi and the child are indeed still a little weak. Qi Feng and Wu Shi followed Mu Yangling's original words, but no one believed them. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 466. Everyone felt that the Qi family was trying to cover up, including the Shu family of the Zhang family and the Zhou family. The female relatives of the 3 families could see how dangerous the delivery room was. If Li's mother and son are really safe now, why did the imperial doctor who returned to the palace keep silent? Only the serious illness and no cure can be explained. Besides, the imperial doctor has returned to the palace. Isn't the doctor invited by the Qi family still in Zhuangzi? Most likely the Qi family is still unwilling to give up hope. Everyone thinks so, including Zhang Jiashu's family and Zhou families. The 3 families suddenly feel that the benefits they have given up are not so painful, at least they can avoid becoming a feud with Qi Ziyuan, right? Except the emperor. Emperor Jinjian sat on the Golden Luan Hall and watched the jokes of the entire Linan city people. At this time, he had a sense of superiority that everyone was drunk and the only one was sober. When the imperial doctor returned to the palace, he was the first to summon him, and then asked him to keep the news. He originally wanted to see the reaction of the Zhang family and the Shu family, but who knew that he knew about the opening of the casino and saw so many people. Mai Li and the child were seriously ill, and even many courtiers were involved, and the emperor did not allow the imperial doctor to disclose it. "How many people bought Li and the child safe and sound?" asked the emperor. The secret guard has long been used to the emperor's unreliability, so he paused and replied, "I have read it briefly, and there are about 100 people, except for Qi Heiran and Mu. The others are 3-year-olds throwing in 2s, and 2s is probably a fluke mentality." The emperor twitched the corner of his mouth and asked, "How much did the Mu family invest?" "I voted 14,000 taels before, and yesterday I increased it by 2,000 taels." "I see, if you drag it on, I'm afraid you will continue to invest in it." The emperor asked curiously, "This money is almost equal to Qi Heiran's. How can the husband and wife vote separately?" "Your Majesty, the Mu family cast his own dowry." The emperor pondered, "The Mu family is so rich." The hidden guard explained, "Your Majesty, people from Xingzhou Mansion have already replied. The Mu family is not considered rich, but when the Mu family got married before, the Mu family gave her almost all the cash for the bottom of the box. Half a year's Zhuangzi's income, this money can just come out, and the 2,000 taels invested yesterday is the proceeds from selling the things in the Zhuangzi the day before yesterday. The emperor couldn't help sitting up slightly, and asked, "What did she sell to make so much money?" "Your Majesty, Qi Wei is going to open the list. There will definitely be more banquets at that time, so in just these 2 days, they have ordered a lot of vegetables, fish, chickens, ducks, and eggs. These 2,000 taels are just the income. I don't understand economics, but I can tell that the Mu family's Zhuangzi is very profitable. From the beginning of spring to now, the Zhuangzi has earned more than 6,000 taels, and when the New Year's Day comes, I'm afraid he will earn even more." Dark Wei paused. He said suddenly, "That's not counting the grain output, because the Mu family hasn't sold grain this year, and the news I found out said that she plans to open a store to sell Zhuangzi's output, and the grain won't have to be sold at a low price. Shop and sell directly by yourself." Not only the emperor, but also the hidden guard did not expect that Zhuangzi, who was thought to be a loser, would make so much money in the hands of Qi Heiran and Mu Yangling. The emperor was happy. He felt that Qi Heiran didn't lie to himself. When they bought this Zhuangzi, they really saw it as a treasure in itself. "All right, I will send Qi Heiran out at the beginning of spring." The hidden guard responded, and was about to bow and retreat, but the emperor stopped him and said in silence for a moment, "Go to my private treasury and take 20,000 taels to vote, and use whatever name you want." The corner of the dark guard's mouth twitched, and he retreated helplessly. The emperor felt a little regretful. The odds given by the casino were only 10 1/5. After casting 20,000 taels, there was still 200,000 left after the rake for the casino. Although 200,000 was not much, it was better than nothing. If it weren't for the fear of the casino's betrayal, the emperor really wanted to invest 200,000 taels all at once, and that feeling would be refreshing just thinking about it. Qi Heiran chose a good day to return to Beijing. During these days, people have been watching the Qi family's Zhuangzi, but because the Qi family is strictly guarded, no one can get any news, but as soon as the Qi family's carriage comes out, people in Linen City will know up. Following behind the carriage, many people peered into the carriage, but the carriage was so tight that it didn't leak a single crack. Everyone couldn't help complaining, "Why are the female family members of the Qi family so shy, and the scenery outside is so beautiful, they are so shy? Shall we lift the curtain and look outside?" Qi Heiran first glared angrily at the person behind him, but because there were several well-known dandies in Beijing, and the other party just followed them with their heads poking around, and there was no offense in their actions, it was not easy for him to clean it up. Seeing that Qi Heiran was annoyed, the dandy in the back happily raised his head to meet his eyes, pretending that they didn't know. They had formulated policies and strategies before they came, and tried not to make actions that would make people catch them, otherwise with Qi Heiran's violent temper, why not beat them up in the street? Although I didn't know the exact situation of Li's mother and son, it was a pleasure to see Qi Heiran angry. The dudes immediately didn't want to leave, and they either rode horses or sat in carriages and followed behind. He also said hello to Qi Heiran from time to time. Qi Heiran got angry for a moment, and he became happy again when he thought that they would lose money soon. He raised his chin and gave them a disdainful look, and walked ahead refreshed. The dandies only interpreted it with their own conjectures. Qi Heiran must be forcing a smile, and they expressed sympathy for it. People along the street saw a group of horse-drawn carriages followed by a mighty crowd. No matter what era the Chinese people are in, if there is no danger, everyone likes to join in the fun, so when they don't know the truth, everyone follows behind, send Qi Heiran and the others back to Qi Mansion. That majestic crowd directly blocked a street, and those who didn't know thought the Qi family was so popular. Qi Heiran directly asked someone to drive the carriage into the house, and then he clenched his fists at everyone and said, "Thank you for sending us off, but Qi has something to do and can't entertain everyone, so I will invite you another day." A dandy got out of the carriage, and said idly, "Qi Heiran, Don't smile bitterly, we can all understand, this accident is not what you thought. When I see Big Brother Chi later, I will definitely say something for you, don't worry, I will definitely keep your skin. Chi Heiran snorted, stared, and said, if you don't leave, I will make it impossible for you to keep the skin now. The dandy curled his lips, but he didn't tease him anymore, he just smiled and waved for people to turn the car around and go home. The dudes discussed it and found it difficult to get the real situation from Chi Heiran. After all, he was in grief now, and knowing that they had bad intentions, he was definitely unwilling to communicate with them, so they met and left. The crowd behind who didn't know the truth didn't know why they wanted to follow the convoy when they saw the crowd dispersed. After asking for a long time, everyone also said their own things, and suddenly felt boring and dispersed. Mu Yangling felt that the people in Linen City were too idle. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 467. Chi Heiran was indignant, let's make a grand 100 days for Xiaobao, and if they don't lose their eyes, the master's surname will be written upside down. Mu Yangling comforted him, Master, don't be angry when you think about the money we got from the casino the next day after 100 days. Chi Heiran thought it was the same, turned around to look for Chi Feng, and expressed his intention to serve Xiaobao 100-day wine, and Chi Feng and Wu had seen Li's mother and son when they entered the door. Although he looked a little weak, but he definitely had nothing to do with being seriously ill, so he nodded in agreement. Wu felt that there would definitely be many people coming this time, and thinking of the gift money, she patted her chest and snatched the banquet for the 100 days banquet. Although the eastern and western mansions didn't say it clearly, they were actually separated, so Mu Yangling was a little unhappy, but Li Jinghua tugged at her sleeve and agreed with a smile. When I got back to the house, I said, what Mrs. Wu wants is gift money, and we don't care about it. If you can let it go, let it go. Although the banquet is handed over to her, it can only be held with my consent. Don't worry about it. It would embarrass us. Mu Yangling saw that Li Jinghua's face was full of fighting spirit, so he was happy to let them negotiate, and he hugged Xiaobao to play with Chi Heiran. Chi Heiran had already changed his clothes and ran out to find Fan Zijian. Fan Zijian took the Kaiwei exam in September, for which Chi Heiran went back to the city to live for 10 days, insisting to accompany him to study in the study, then sent him to the exam room, and waited for him outside the exam room with a pot of tea 9 days. When Fan Zijian came out of the examination room, he was in a daze. If Chi Heiran hadn't been sharp-eyed and physically strong, he had spotted him in the first place and rushed to his side to carry him. Fan Zijian would have passed out even if he hadn't fainted. Get pushed down. The other examines were worse than Fan Zijian, some were carried out, and some came out with the support of each other. The examiners are very satisfied, because only one candidate died in the rural examination in Linen City this year, which is a record low. They feel that it would be even better if next year's Chunwei can have 0 deaths. The unlucky candidate died suddenly. In fact, except for the unlucky ones who encountered infectious diseases or fires, most of the candidates who died in the examination room died suddenly or committed suicide due to unbearable pressure. However, large-scale deaths such as infectious diseases and fires have not been encountered in 100 years. At least it has never happened since the founding of the Great Zhou dynasty. But always makes people feel sorry for the pain. This incident gave Chi Heiran a revelation: the imperial examination is not enough to study well, but also to be in good health. He decided to go back and talk to his brother-in-law, let him pay attention to daily exercise. It is best to practice a kung fu. You can't be like Fan Zijian, who spent 3 days fishing and 2 days drying nets when practicing martial arts. Look, you can't hold on now, can you? While thinking wildly, Chi Heiran carried them back to the Fan mansion. Fan Siwen asked for leave to stay at home, and when he saw them coming back, he raised his eyelids and asked, "How did you do in the exam?" Fan Zijin didn't answer at all. Xia family only cared about her son's body, heard this and beat her husband, said, "Didn't you see that the child hasn't slowed down yet? The exams are over, why are you 2 days late?" Fan Siwen was so angry that his beard trembled, but seeing Fan Zijin's eyes slightly closed, his face pale and his head drooping, he pressed down and stopped asking. Chi Heiran helped Fan Zijin to pour soup for him, and confidently said to his uncle, "Uncle, don't worry, with Zijin's talent, he is guaranteed to win the exam. If he fails, there must be something wrong with the imperial examination." Fan Siwen snorted, and said, "It's fine to talk about it at home, go out and say it, and be careful not to be drowned by the spittle of the literati, and the censor will sue you for defamation." Chi Heiran just stuck out his tongue, and Fan Siwen looked at his son and said, "I hope he can be as talented as you said, and he can be selected as a candidate." Fan Zijin was fed several mouthfuls of soup by Chi Heiran. The hot chicken soup fell into the stomach and brought a sense of warmth, and he recovered a little bit of energy. When he heard his father's lukewarm words, he raised his eyelids and looked at him. He asked faintly, "If I fail the exam, will you give me the quota of an iron?" Fan Siwen's face flushed red and angry. Fan Zijin leaned on Chi Heiran's body and stood up, raised his head and said sadly, "I can't help it, I have a father to rely on. If I don't work hard, won't the only thing left in my life is doing business and renting goods?" Fan Zijin managed to drive Fan Siwen away in anger. Xiaoshi glared at him bitterly, "Can't you have a good talk with your father?" He chased after him. Fan Zijin pouted, leaned on Chi Heiran's shoulder and said, "Master Fu, go back and rest." Chi Heiran carried him back because of his weakness. "Why do you always provoke uncle?" Fan Zijin couldn't say that seeing his father was so angry that he was happy for no reason, could he? So there was silence. Chi Heiran felt that they were in the same sympathy, and thought that he, too, longed for father's love like him and couldn't produce resentment. He followed his old path, so he sighed and stayed to take care of him without complaint. Fan Zijin knew what Chi Heiran was thinking without even opening his eyelids. Chi Heiran really underestimated him. When Chi Heiran was still working hard but clumsily to please Chi Feng, hoping to get a little father's love, Fan Zijin had already seen through his parents. The father thinks that a bowl of water is equal, and the concubine is weak and partial to the concubine. The mother thinks that she loves her husband and son deeply, but in fact she only revolves around the father. Chi Heiran broke out after Chi Feng promised Wu to tell Chi Ziyuan about the Wu family's marriage. Chi Feng was completely disappointed and reluctantly let go of the father-son relationship. And the mother would only make a lot of noise, completely disappointed with her mother after she couldn't come up with any means, and no longer played the trick of fatherly kindness and filial piety as she wished. It can be said that when the two cousins ran away from home, Chi Heiran was heartbroken and desperate for his father, while Fan Zijin was disappointed and resisted for his mother. Kill the father-son relationship. That's why Chi Heiran was able to become more and more courageous through setbacks, deluding himself into thinking that Chi Feng treated him like that because he didn't live up to expectations. It can be said that Fan Zijin is much more rational and cold-blooded than Chi Heiran, and since he arrived in Baidi, he has been able to control his anger towards this family, but when he came back, he found that he could easily provoke Fan Siwen's anger. Fan Zijin was very satisfied with the result, he even enjoyed the process, so after he recovered from sleep for 2 days, had another big meal, and completely regained his energy, he decided to reject Chi Heiran's invitation to live in Zhuangzi for a while. The suggestion of playing around is to stay in the Fan mansion to appreciate the anxiety of my brother-in-law and the angry face of my father. And now that Chi Wei is about to release the rankings, the first thing Chi Heiran does when he comes back is naturally to see his perverted cousin Fan Zijin. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 468. Fan Zijian had just succeeded in shocking his concubine brother Fan Zixiao into a pale face. He was drinking a cup of tea when he saw Qi Heiran, waved his hand, and said, "I was about to tell you, but Chen Qian and I complained that we couldn't get any information from you. A bit of real news, saying that you are not enough friends, and it happens that the ranking will be released in 2 days, and then we will go to the Quanja building to celebrate together, and you will explain to them." Qi Heiran curled his lips and said, "What? I said my sister-in-law and nephew are fine, but they just don't believe it." Fan Zijian smiled nonchalantly, "I don't believe he bought the health of his sister-in-law and nephew with you, isn't that all right?" His eyes flashed coldly. He was not just angry at the behavior of the casino, but he was now focused on the imperial examination. "Don't care about them for the time being, it's not too late for the villain to take revenge in 20 years. Qi Heiran didn't know what Fan Zijian was thinking, so he told about the 100 Days banquet, and Fan Zijian promised to attend. After thinking about it, he rolled his eyes and said, "Since Mrs. Wu wants to accept the 100 Days banquet, let her take over, but the banquet has to be ordered from the Quanja building, and it has to be a first-class banquet." Qi Heiran opened his mouth wide and asked, "How much does it cost?" Fan Zijian glanced at him, and said, "You don't need to spend money, and we earn the money. Why do you feel bad? Wu Shi has received so many gifts, how can he not give some?" The two immediately finalized the business. Fan Zijian was very happy, and asked Yanmo to send the order to Qian Guanxi, and asked him to provide good service. He must take advantage of this great opportunity to promote the banquet in Quanjalo. Steward Qian agreed with great ambition. When Qi Heiran returned home, he didn't bother to look for Mrs. Wu, so he directly called Mr. Zhao over and told him that the banquet had been booked as a first-class banquet in Quanjalo, and he gave the money to Quanjalo. Mrs. Wu, who originally decided to invite a chef to the mansion to hold a banquet by herself, almost fainted when she saw the list that Mr. Zhao handed in. Mrs. Wu said bitterly, "This cost is too much. 100-day banquet is even more expensive than ours. The cost of the 2 marriages in the family is even more." Wu gritted her teeth and said, "Go, return the list, and I will tell the master when he comes back." As soon as the words fell, Yu Xing came in and reported, "Madam, Wang Ma from Zayahua courtyard is here." Wu Shi suppressed her temper and said expressionlessly, "Let her in." Wang Ma came in with a smile on her face, blessed Mrs. Wu and said with a smile, "Madam, this is the list of banquet guests drawn up by Grandma and Grandma 4. You will need to add them to it when the time comes." Sue's heart moved, and she gave Yu Xing a wink. Yu Xing quickly picked it up and handed it to Wu. Wu opened it with a sullen face, and after only reading a page, her face softened slightly. When Wang Ma saw her, she smiled and said, "Madam, our eldest grandma said that she is still a little weak, and the 4th grandma will help take care of the children, so the banquet can only be left to the wife, 2nd grandma and 3rd grandma. Please forgive me if I am troublesome." Wu looked down at the list in his hand and said, "Some people may not come if we invite them." Grandma said, "Madam can only post the post, whether they come or not is up to each family." Even though Wang Ma said so, she was very confident, as if she was sure that they would definitely come back. Wu thought that Qi Ziyuan was already a member of the 2nd rank, so the people he invited were of equal status. Thinking about it, Wu Shi nodded in agreement. Madame Wang withdrew, and Mrs. Wu no longer pursued the matter of the banquet. Instead, she took a key and asked Nanny Wu and Director Zhao to open the warehouse to get the money to hand over the banquet order in Quanja building. Xiao Wu refused to accept it. She didn't know what was written on the list, but she knew that the first-class banquet in Quanjalo was not cheap. It was almost 5 years of Wu's expenses. "Mother, why did you agree?" Mrs. Wu waited for Nanny Wu and Manager Zhao to leave, then she gave her daughter-in-law a look and said, "What do you know, This list includes everything from first rank to third rank, except for Qin Penjin and a few first rank officials. If you come, you will definitely bring a lot of gift money. The most important thing is that our Wu family can only entertain officials and family members of the third rank in the past. When can we invite the first rank and second rank? This is an opportunity, understand? The third one calls back, tidies up for them, and then memorizes the names of all the adults and sons in Beijing, and when the time comes, the two of them will follow the master out of the front yard to say hello. Mrs. Su's eyes were as bright as the stars, and she agreed happily when she heard the words. Only Mrs. Wu was still pouting her heart for the money. Seeing this, Wu sighed. Back then, she insisted on marrying Qi Feng, and Qi Feng also insisted on accepting her as a noble concubine. However, Wu Jiaxin fled to Linen and lived a hard life. 2. This inevitably annoyed the Zhu family. Although Zhu Wan said that she didn't mind and accepted her generously on the surface, in private, the Zhu family often targeted the Wu family. During the years when Zhu Wan was alive, no one in the Wu family those who can stand out in the officialdom, and after Zhu Wan died, she took care of Qi Ziyuan's brother as Ziofu, but found that Qi Ziyuan's malice towards him remained undiminished, and Qi Heiran was also taken over by Xia Tong to raise him. She spared no effort. Although she hated her greatly, she had to suppress her temper and seek peace. Fortunately, God was merciful. Zhu's family was sent out of the capital not long after Zhu Wan's death. Because of being far away from the capital, although the Wu family was still suppressed, with Qi Feng's help, they found some vitality and gradually emerged, so she no longer had to suppress her wronged son to please Qi Ziyuan brother. But the Wu family has had a hard time for several years, and the little Wu family has developed a stingy and money-loving temperament. After marrying in, she really wanted to break it off, but it didn't work. She doesn't mind that she loves money, who doesn't love money? But it is also necessary to distinguish between priorities, like Su, isn't she also jealous of Li's and Mu's things? But at this moment, she knew that the connections brought by this 100-day banquet were far greater than the money spent. What's more, the people they invited would not make them lose money at all, and the gift money they got in the end must be quite a lot. Isn't it because Qi Heiran didn't want to give them the gift money for nothing, so he booked the first-class banquet in Quanzhou? Let's make a decision, anyway, they will make money in the end. But some things can be said to Xiao Wu, who is both daughter-in-law and niece, but it is not easy to say to Su, so Wu found a reason to push Su away, and pulled Xiao Wu to teach her in a low voice. When Xiao Wu came out of the main house, there was no anger on his face, and there was even a hint of joy in the corners of his eyes and brows. Su's girl kept staring at her, and when she saw this, she went back to report to the second grandma. Su curled her lips in disdain, and said, "The mother-in-law taught her such a simple and easy-to-understand question for a long time, and I don't know how the Wu family raises it of." Mrs. Su put away a set of children's gold ornaments, waved and said, "You send it to Zayed Hall yourself, and say that I, the second aunt, gave my nephew a little greeting." Yaju asked, "Second grandma, why don't you go and have a look? Speaking of which, you haven't visited the second young master's berth yet." Mrs. Su leaned on her back pillow indifferently and said, "Let's go after the 100-day banquet. Do you think that the West Mansion is rare for us to go to see it? Back then, she had a dystocia, and we were all kept out of the door. Even Mrs. this grandmother wants to see that her grandson can't get in, they are guarding against us. The Reborn Wife is Farming." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 469. Yaja curled her lips in disdain. The eldest grandma and the fourth grandma are too careful, as if someone is afraid that the second young master will be harmed. Mrs. Su didn't speak. The conflict between the East Mansion and the West Mansion has a long history. The father-in-law pushed the uncle out, and the crime of rebellion almost fell on the uncle's head. Now the father-in-law will be removed from the position of patriarch. Is there also uncle's handwriting? Now the East and West mansions seem to be in harmony. The father-in-law just doesn't care about the affairs of the West mansion with a smile, and the fourth uncle also runs over to say hello to the father-in-law from time to time, but everyone knows that this is just peace on the surface. The two sides have already turned upside down. In the future, if this family business is to be inherited, it will definitely have to be broken. Father-in-law and mother-in-law plan to inherit all the family business of the chief family to the second and third masters. The fourth uncle may not care about it, but it is not certain whether the uncle will let it go. Still have the eldest son to inherit. Moreover, father-in-law and mother-in-law are really willing to part with the money and property of uncle and fourth uncle? Even she was so excited that she wanted to do it, let alone those two. And the uncle and fourth uncle are not fools. The property will definitely not be attached to their own names, and it will definitely be a big battle to separate the family. The current peace is just an illusion, and the children are their reliance. If there is no son, then it is not certain who will inherit the family business in the future. It's no wonder that Mrs. Lee and Mrs. Mu are wary of them. This is the inference that Mrs. Su came up with after thinking about being refused to see her children for several days. But she didn't know that Mu Yangling's refusal for them to see the child was really just to prevent the spread of germs and give the child a good condition for recuperation. After all, the child was too weak at that time. In order not to cause other diseases, all people who could come into contact with the child had to change clothes, scrub their hands, face, and neck, ventilate the doors and windows, and hang dust filter cloth outside. Internet, it can be said that Mu Yangling attached great importance to the safety and hygiene of children at that time. And it was impossible for her to ask the Wu family and the Su family to do this, and they were still putting on makeup, and the relationship between them was not particularly good. There was no pressure at all for Mu Yangling to refuse them. How could it be so misleading? After hearing the second grandma's analysis, Yaja didn't dare to talk anymore, and when she sent the things to Zayed Hall, she honestly didn't dare to look around. Li Jinghua thanked Su for her gift, and after accepting it, she asked Wen Kui to take the tangerines down. Mu Yangling opened it and saw that the golden longevity lock, gold bracelet, and gold anklet were all complete. Mu Yangling liked it very much. Seeing this, Li Jinghua said helplessly, "I don't know, but I thought you were the child." Mu Yangling stuck out his tongue, put the things away for Wen Mian, and said, "It is said that it is better for children to bring silver, and it looks good." The full moon gift that Mu Yangling gave Xiaobao was a set of silver ornaments. Li Jinghua only brought him a pair of silver bracelets. Turning over towards his mother, he tried his best to raise his head and saw his mother, a little confused, then curled his lips aggrieved, and turned his head to look at Mu Yangling vigorously. Li Jinghua and Mu Yangling immediately stopped and watched his movements intently. Seeing that no one paid any attention to him, Xiaobao waited and looked at the patterns on the blanket for a long time, then with a last effort, he turned back with a snap, facing the roof, and then turned his head flexibly to look at his mother and aunt. Mu Yangling and Li Jinghua quickly turned their eyes away to look elsewhere. While pretending to speak, Xiaobao blinked his black eyes when he saw that they were not looking at him, then looked left and right, carefully tried I turned over, but found that it was easy to turn to the mother's side, but it was impossible to turn to the aunt's side. He frowned tightly, stretched out his little hand and patted the couch angrily, yelled twice, then looked up at his mother and aunt. Mu Yangling and Li Jinghua, who had already turned their heads and continued to observe him, didn't react in time, and were caught by his gaze. Only then did Xiaobao realize that he was being watched all the time. His aggrieved eyes turned red, and he let out a wow, just cry out, kicking while crying. Li Jinghua hurriedly picked up the child, patted his butt lightly and smiled, "What a fool, what are you going to do if your mother doesn't look at you?" Hugging the baby in the house, Mu Yangling was overjoyed. Looking at the bigger and rosy little treasure, Mu Yangling thought, having a child seems to be a very happy thing. On October 13th, Chiu Wei released the rankings, and the students crowded in front of the Gongyuan to read the rankings. Naturally, Fan Zijin didn't have to squeeze himself. They all stood outside, craned their necks and asked, "Zijin, how sure are you?" Although they already knew the other party's answer, they couldn't help but be tortured to ask. Sure enough, Fan Zijin said disdainfully, "If I can't even take down the Chiu Wei, do I still have the face to prepare for next year's Chun Wei?" When the students passing by heard this, they couldn't understand Fan Zijin's arrogance, especially when they were still a group of second-generation officials. They were even more resistant. When Wu number 1, Fan Zijin didn't think there was anything wrong with this. After waiting for a long time, Yan Mo and Fei Bai couldn't be seen, so he stood here impatiently and waited, asking Chen Qian to leave his servant to inform Yan Mo. Fei explained their whereabouts, and took everyone back to Quanzhou building. The Quanzhou building is busy. Today is the big day for the announcement of the rankings. In the afternoon, high school students will definitely go to the restaurant to celebrate, and those who fail the rankings will also drink to vent their anger, so he has been making preparations since the day before yesterday, and must take advantage of this opportunity to release Quanzhou. Lu's reputation became even stronger, so when Fan Zijin came, he showed up to the front, greeted him and then withdrew. The group found a box and sat down, looking at the passers-by outside the window. Except for Fan Zijin, everyone was not in the mood to eat, especially Chi Heiran, who stretched his neck so long that he wished he could rush out to watch the list instead of Fei Bai and Yan Mo. Chen Qian glanced at Fan Zijin, who was drinking tea leisurely, then at Chi Heiran, and said with a smile, "I don't know, I thought Heiran was the one who ended up." Fan Zijin twirled the teacup, turned to meet his eyes and said, "Actually, I'm also nervous." Not only Chen Qian, but everyone else was also taken aback. Only Chi Heiran didn't pause for a moment, turned around and patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry, you will definitely be able to pass high school." Fan Zijin nodded, "I know I will definitely win, but I don't know what my ranking will be, so I am inevitably a little nervous, but it seems that you are more nervous than me, so I don't need to be nervous." As soon as these words came out, everyone stared at Fan Zijin with envy and hatred. It was better not to say these words, they were just as arrogant. Chi Heiran suddenly pointed down and shouted, "Fei Bai and Yan Mo are back." He leaned out and asked loudly, "Did you get hit?" The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 470. I got it, I got it," Yan Mo and Fei Bai yelled all the way up, grinning and said, "Congratulations, young master Biao, for being fourth in the top 2 of high school." Chi Heiran jumped up, laughed loudly and said, "I knew you would pass the exam." All the friends in the private room congratulated Fan Zijin. Fan Zijin's lips curled up slightly, and he breathed a sigh of relief. After all, this ranking is not too bad. Everyone in the restaurant knows that today is the day when the rankings are released, so they are very tolerant of the noisy Yan Mo and Fei Bai, and even poked their heads in to see who the high school students were when they heard that they were successful, and would come over to congratulate if they knew anyone. After all, being promoted in high school means having the opportunity to become an official. When Guan Qiqian heard the news, he turned around excitedly and kowtowed to Fan Zijin. He was so happy. His master passed the Juran examination, which meant that his future would only be brighter. The few people had a lively drink, during which Chen Qian condemned Chi Heiran unhappily. "Heiran is not mean at all, and he refuses to tell you the truth when I ask you any news. Now that your sister-in-law and nephew are back, can you tell us if they are safe or not?" Chi Heiran drank a glass of wine, and said in a smoky way, "Didn't I tell you that my sister-in-law and nephew are fine? You don't believe me, but you blame me for not telling the truth." Chen Qian and the other dudes were shocked and asked, "Are you serious?" "Of course it's true. The 100 Days banquet will be held in 2 days. When you come over, I'll bring my nephew out to say hello to you. A few friends patted their chests and said happily, fortunately, we gave you face and bought your adults and children to be healthy, otherwise we will be killed this time. The dog friend also nodded and said, it's very risky, but in 3 days we should be able to get several thousand taels. As soon as Chihayron heard it, he knew that they didn't invest much, at most around 100 taels, so he curled his lips in disdain. Why don't you invest more? What is enough for only 100 taels of silver? Do you think we have the same family business as you? There is a big brother on the top who is hurting you. Don't worry about the pocket money. There is a Zygon outside to back you up. If we want to squander it, we can spend hundreds or even thousands of taels, but we still need that money. It's not easy to go back and get the dowry of your daughter-in-law, right? The 100 taels of silver were saved by them and invested in the casino in order to cheer Chihayron, otherwise, they wouldn't play this game. Although Chihayron and Fan Zygon haven't been back for 5 years, they usually exchanged letters, and they had the best memories as teenagers, and when they came back and treated them as before, they naturally treated them as before. Although they complained to each other, they were still very happy about being able to buy 1,000 taels with 100 taels. The news of Fan Zygon's high school and the news that Lee's mother and son were safe could be regarded as 3 joys. Everyone laughed and toasted indiscriminately. It's just a pity that the casino won't allow people to place bets on the day Hayron comes back, otherwise I would have to bet 10,000 to 20,000 yuan even if I borrowed money now, Yu Hupeng said droolingly. When the time comes, it will be 200,000 yuan. Even though they are the second generation of officials, they are indispensable in daily life, but in fact the average cost is really not much, and the management of them is very strict at home. Chen Qian, who had the best family background, was a little cautious before he failed the Jinshi exam. The only 2 weirdos among them were Chihayron and Fan Zygon. The Qi family has been detaining Chihayron all the time, and then Qi Ziyuan and Xia family love him dearly. Qi Ziyuan can send him some money from thousands of miles away from time to time, and Xia family often gives him pocket money. So on the surface Chihayron had the hardest life, but in fact he was the one with the richest money and the biggest hands and feet. No matter how bad he was, wouldn't there be Fan Zygon? If Chihayron relied on the love of his relatives, then Fan Zygon was able to make money by himself. Although Fan Siwen was very strict with his son-in-law and was somewhat partial to his son-in-law, the expenses he paid for him were actually similar to those of other sons, but Fan Zygon was very quick-witted and could always coax money from his mother. If it doesn't come, he happens to quarrel with Fan Siwen and will pawn some things from Fan Siwen for sale. The next day, rumors that Fan Siwen treated his son-in-law harshly would appear immediately, and there must be a second or third junior censor to impeach him. Fan Siwen dared not do it even if he wanted to peel him off. Everyone is staring. Chen Qian and the others were not as ruthless as Fan Zygon. They didn't have the guts to fight against the old man in the family like this. At that time, everyone was only in their early 10 years old, and they were all half-grown children. Of course, there are very few people who can be as eccentric as Fan Siwen, who is almost as good as Qi Feng. Back then, when people talked about the two, they always put them together. The 2 fathers are very similar. The strange thing is, their sons are still inseparable like conjoined twins. Chihayron just laughed, and Fan Zygon glanced at him, seeing that he still knew how to have fun, instead of yelling so that the whole world knew that he had invested money, so they knew that he was not drunk to death. Chen Qian was a little worried, and after everyone had left, he pulled Chihayron, who was a little drunk, and said, I heard that you also invited the Zhang family and the Shu family to the 100-day banquet. I'm afraid the 2 of them will be unhappy. Chihayron was suddenly dissatisfied and said, what is falsehood? It is always true that we have harmed my sister-in-law and nephew. It is not enough for them to walk around the gate of hell and come back. I am satisfied only if something happens to my sister-in-law and nephew, right? That's not what I meant, Chen Qian immediately explained. I just mean that the two of you are probably a little embarrassed to meet each other now, so why do you post to them? Qi Heiran said unhappily, if they are guilty and dare not come, then they won't come. I just want them to read the post I sent to them. Although they did something wrong and hurt my sister-in-law and nephew, my sister-in-law and nephew, my nephew, Fu, managed to escape that hurdle. Qi Heiran glared at Chen Qian with dissatisfaction and said, Chen Qian, don't think that your daughter-in-law's surname is Shu and I will give Shu's face. Let me tell you, there are no doors and no windows. Chen Qian was speechless, and couldn't understand what he was doing, so he could only continue, my wife's natal family is not in the same house as the Shu family you made an apology for, my wife is from the first wife. Qi Heiran curled his lips and shouted, what do you mean by apologizing to me? When you say this, you are targeting the Shu family. If you are targeting me, then you should say that the Shu family who killed my sister-in-law and nephew. Fan Zijin also came out a little dizzy, pushed Chen Qian, and said, okay, didn't you see that he was drunk? What are you explaining to a drunk? He forgot everything when he woke up. It was a waste of time. Chen Qian heard the same thing, looking at Qi Heiran who was obviously drunk and out of his mind, he slapped himself lightly, he was really stupid, what would he say to a drunk? Chen Qian said, let's go, I'll send you two back now. This place is relatively close to Fan's house, he helped Rang Yanmo Fibei into the car, and was about to go to Fan's house, when Fan Zijin lifted the curtain and poked his head out, go to Qi's house, I'm in a good mood today, I won't go back gone. Chen Qian paused, sighed, and said to the coachman, go to Qi's house. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 471. Fan Siwen knew that his son was in high school, so he walked around the house twice excitedly, and then ordered the kitchen to be well prepared, and the family celebrated in the evening. But Fan Zijin didn't come back until late at night. Fan Siwen sat in the flower hall with a sullen face. Xiaoxi looked at him worriedly, and explained the news. Zijin and Heiran are drunk and messing around, and they will be back tomorrow. Fan Siwen is not an idiot. Upon hearing this, he sneered and said, he won't be back tomorrow. Which student didn't want to share with his family the first time in high school? Only he would go to someone else's house to sleep on such an important night. Fan Siwen's breath was stuck in his chest, and he couldn't get out no matter what. At this moment, he was even a little bit resentful. It's not that Zijin has no brothers, but he only wears a pair of pants with Qi Heiran, and he either ridicules, suppresses, or ignores the Shu brothers at home. Who doesn't have one or two concubines? The relationship between the legitimate son and the concubine may not be as good as that of the real brothers, but they will not be like enemies and strangers like their family. Seeing that Fan Siwen was on the edge of his horn, Xia didn't stop persuading her, and sat silently by the side, planning in her mind how to persuade her son to give in to her husband when he came back. But Fan Zijin never came back, and the happy news was received by someone from the Xia family. Xiaoxi sighed slightly, and asked, second master hasn't come back yet. The person being asked lowered his head. Xiaoxi waved his hand, forget it, anyway, tomorrow is the Qi family's 100-day banquet, and we can always see people then. This was the biggest banquet ever held by the Qi family, and all the people who were invited came. There was no way, the Zhang family and the Shu family came. They expressed their curiosity about the entanglement between the three families, so they all came to watch. As for the Zhou family, they were directly assigned to the Shu family, or they were forgotten. The eldest wife of the Zhang family and the second wife came together, bringing the eldest wife's daughter-in-law, Grandma Zhang San, and the second wife's daughter, Zhang Zisu. Although the grievances have been resolved in private, they still have to apologize to the Chi family in public, so the two came to make amends. What surprised the Zhang family was that the old lady of the fourth room of the Shu family also came, bringing her daughter-in-law and grandson and granddaughter, and even her son, which surprised Mrs. Zhang slightly. The Shu family and the Qi family also took it too seriously. If it wasn't for showing off, she wouldn't even want to come to Qi's family for a banquet. After all, the previous relationship deteriorated like that. Mrs. Zhang knew the reason. The mother was afraid that she wanted to see Wanyang's daughter. Shu Qingniang also came. She sat with the female family members of the Zhou family, but her eyes were fixed on the chairman. She also wanted to see what Shu Wanyang's daughter looked like. Everyone looked at the three families, and found that the atmosphere of the Shu family was a bit strange. Not only the Shu family, but also the married daughter of the Shu family was also a little weird. Everyone followed their eyes and looked at the chairman. Sighed. So when Li Jinghua came out with Xiaobao and Mu Yangling in her arms, she was startled by everyone's enthusiastic eyes, and then she quickly came back to her senses, and stepped forward with a slight smile. Everyone came back to their senses, looked up at the child. Don't, if the money is good, he will throw it at them. Li Jinghua answered them all with a smile, and said a few words of modesty from time to time. In the past 6 months, she also made 1 or 2 good friends, and they surrounded her, giving her enough face, and helping her from time to time. Cope with 1 or 2. Li Jinghua nodded gratefully at them. Mu Yangling was still talking non-stop when facing her, but he could not speak when facing strangers, but if he offended her, he would not give an inch, so she did not dare to bring her into it, for fear that she would listen to other people's irony as good words, but the good words would be taken as malicious, so let her follow behind, and help her hold the baby for a while. It is really Xiaobao is too heavy, she just hugs it for a while and then presses it down. The hand is heavy, obviously a month ago she could easily carry him around the village. Mrs. Shu stared at her when she came out of Mu Yangling. She didn't need her daughter-in-law to introduce her. She knew that the young but beautiful person was Mrs. Mu. She looked at her critically, and said after a long time, there is no other place except the eyes. Like hers. Shu Fang lowered her head. She had never seen the second aunt, so she didn't know how to respond. As soon as Mu Yangling came out, she knew that she was being watched, because the gaze was so presumptuous and blatant, it was difficult for her to pretend that she didn't know. Anyway, this room is full of female relatives, so she temporarily endured it and followed Li Jinghua and brought the children to meet and greet the old lords. But those gazes not only did not restrain themselves, but became more aggressive. Mu Yangling turned his head to face the strongest one in displeasure. Mrs. Shu looked into Mu Yangling's eyes calmly, but only saw displeasure and warning in the other's eyes, without other emotional fluctuations, inquiry, curiosity, and shock. Mrs. Shu's heart was full of alarm bells. Is this really Wanyang's daughter? It's so unreal. Mu Yangling glanced at Mrs. Shu, and then looked at Mrs. Shu Fang beside her. Knowing her identity, she gave Mrs. Shu a mocking look, and then turned her head to look at another look, where she saw Zhou Tinglan knew that it was Shu Qingniang who pushed her mother out of the car. This time, Mu Yangling showed a smile to Shu Qingniang, which was as gorgeous as a summer flower blooming, and immediately surprised the people who noticed Mu Yangling, but scared Shu Qingniang. Given the grievances between her and Shu Wanyang, Mu Yangling would never smile at her so brightly, so she was frightened. There must be a conspiracy in it. Mu Yangling quickly looked away, and only glanced at Shu Shiniang who was looking at her. Li Jinghua also saw Mu Yangling's smile, and she was stunned for a moment. It was the first time she saw Mu Yangling smile like this. It wasn't a heartless smile, nor a soft smile. The smile just now was also amazing. As soon as she touched her, Li Jinghua had an intuition that there was something wrong, but it was difficult to ask her because she was surrounded by everyone. She held Mu Yangling and asked, "Aling, what happened?" Mu Yangling looked at her blankly. "What happened?" Li Jinghua was speechless for a while, and asked, "Then why did you smile so much just now?" "Forget it, I won't ask you, but if you follow me closely for a while, if you don't cause trouble, it doesn't mean that things won't trouble you. You are clumsy. Don't be bullied." Mu Yangling pursed his lips and smiled. Li Jinghua kept staring at her this time, saw her smile, touched her face and sighed, "Aling, I just thought you were beautiful before, but now I think you are beautiful, as expected, you have grown up, and when your face grows completely in the future, I don't know how amazing it will be." Mu Yangling said, "My father said that I look like my grandfather, and I have a similar image to him." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 472. Li Jinghua looked at the beautiful Mu Yangling, who was gradually developing into beauty, and couldn't believe it. Mu Yangling lowered his voice and laughed, "My grandfather looks like my great-grandmother. Unfortunately, my father has never met my great-grandmother, but my grandfather told him that my great-grandmother is very beautiful." Li Jinghua believed it only now. What Mu Yangling didn't say was that her great-grandmother used to be from Yufang, and her great-grandfather was an out-and-out prairie warrior. But these are not important. The nanny brought Xiaobao, who had changed her diaper, and Mu Yangling took it in her arms and followed Li Jinghua out. This time, she inevitably walked to the seat where the Zhang family was sitting. Mrs. Zhang glanced at the child with a smile, put a white jade ring with a simple halo in the child's swaddle, and said with a smile, "This child's eyes turning around, you can see that he is smart, Madam Qi is blessed." In daily life, everyone calls Grandma Li Shiki, but she has a high rank, and she is not low. Like this kind of formal banquet, or when people are not familiar, they will call her Madam to show respect. You praised him too much. Now that he is still young, how can he be smart? He is much more mischievous than other children, Li Jinghua said modestly with a smile. Naughty children are smart. Mrs. Zhang called Mrs. Zhang San and Zhang Zisu over and asked them to apologize to Mrs. Li and the child. Mrs. Zhang apologized very much. "These children are too naughty. I didn't expect that Mrs. would be affected by the frolicking. You and the child have suffered so much, and it took me so long to find a chance to apologize to you. I hope you don't mind." Since Li Jinghua came to the position of the Zhang family, everyone looked at this side with nothing. Naturally, Li Jinghua would not embarrass them, and even grabbed Mu Yangling, who wanted to refute, and nodded with a smile, "This matter has passed, and the eldest wife should not be too harsh on them. Even if this matter is exposed." Grandma Zhang San and Zhang Zisu both breathed a sigh of relief. Zhang Zisu looked up at Mu Yangling, who was holding the child. Her eyes darkened. She knew Mu Yangling, and her mother said that this was her cousin. Thinking that the marriage that was about to be agreed was blown up because of this incident, Zhang Zisu brought some tears and looked at her with some resentment. If she had been willing to speak out for the Shu family, this incident would not have caused trouble at all. So big. Mu Yangling didn't pay attention to Zhang Zisu at all, because she was snatching the jade ring from Xiaobao's hand and handing it to the nurse at the side. "This thing is precious and old, who knows what bacteria is on it? Or wait until he is a little older to wear it?" The next table turned out to be the Shu family, and I don't know how the Wu family lined up the seats. Although the Shu family has a lot of people who are officials, they still can't reach this position. Li Jinghua saluted them with tea instead of wine. The second and third rooms of the Shu family glanced at the fourth room, congratulated Mrs. Li with the same smile, and then praised the child. The Shu family only has the second room, the third room and the fourth room are here, and the eldest room represents the whole family to send a gift, but does not appear in person. From the perspective of the first room, the last incident was a conflict between the second room and the fourth room and the Qi family. It's better for them to keep taboo about this kind of matter related to their heirs. Grandma Shu Si of the second room first apologized obediently. She had long felt that the attitude of the fourth room was different, but she couldn't find anything out. This time she was implicated by the fourth room. Here, I apologize first and sit aside, and her mother-in-law just pretend not to see their turbulence, no matter what the reason is. Anyway, she can stay away from the fourth room in the future. They are all cousins of the fourth room. If it weren't for them, how could this disaster happen? Li Jinghua was still waiting for the reaction from the fourth room of the Shu family. Seeing that Mrs. Shu was drinking tea with lowered brows, she smiled slightly and turned around to take Mu Yangling to the next table. The opportunity has been given to them. If they don't, sure, but I can't blame her. Who knew that as soon as she turned around, Mrs. Shu said, "Mrs. Chi, this is Grandma Chi fourth behind you, right?" Li Jinghua paused. Although he was puzzled, he turned around with a smile and said, "That's right, this is my fourth sibling, fourth younger sibling. Come, I have met Mrs. Shu." The nanny wanted to go forward to hold the child, but Mu Yangling had already carried the child Yingying Fulai, and greeted with a smile, "Hello, Mrs. Shu." Mrs. Shu nodded slightly, and said, "Grandma Chi, it's been a year since you married into the Chi family, and it's time to have a child. You won't be lonely if you have a child by your side. After all, your natal family is far away from here." Everyone was taken aback. What happened to Mrs. Shu? Why is Eulaomai getting old? This is something that only elders would say. How could she, a strange old lady, shut up about the Chi family? Mu Yangling smiled calmly and said, "What Mrs. Shu said is that my natal family is a little far away. Speaking of my natal family, I suddenly remembered something. My mother's surname is also Shu, which has the same surname as Master Shu. Us. Maybe we were one family 500 years ago." Shu Shiniang rushed over to interrupt her, and turned her head to ask her mother, "Mother, do you think so?" Mrs. Shu did not expect that Mu Yangling was not afraid at all, and would not suffer at all. She dared to threaten her in front of so many people, but she looked at her daughter-in-law and granddaughter sitting next to her, and begged to look at her. She could only suppress the anger in her heart, and said with a smile, "Yes, what Shiniang said is right, maybe we were one family 500 years ago." The smile on Mu Yangling's face deepened, and he nodded and said, "I didn't expect our two families to be so destined." Seeing that her mother-in-law was also suppressed by Mu Yangling, Mrs. Shu Fang hurriedly pulled her daughter up and asked her to apologize to Mrs. Li and the child. So far, all the parties concerned have apologized to Mrs. Li face to face. Mrs. Shu watched Mu Yangling and Li Jinghua leave with a slightly gloomy face. When they left the banquet, Shu Mingxiang came to pick them up and asked with a smile, "Mother, have you seen that child?" Seeing his mother's gloomy face for a moment, he knew that things were not going well. He hurriedly smiled and helped her out. Mrs. Shu showed a decent smile again. Fortunately no outsiders saw the joke. Mrs. Zhang-san ignored her sister-in-law's face, climbed into the Shu family's carriage, and said to Mrs. Shu, "Mother, this was originally Mu's trick, but now it has become our trick. I don't think she recognizes us either, and it's not good for her to talk about it, so let's pretend that we don't know each other in the future, and we all go our own way." Mrs. Shu clenched her fists tightly and said, "Back then I shouldn't have been soft-hearted and gave birth to such an unfilial and unrighteous thing." Shu Shiniang's eyes turned red. She wiped away her tears, and said in a rare way, "Mother, I don't think this is what my sister meant. It's not like you don't know her temper since she was a child. She is so soft that she hasn't been poked yet. She will be deflated first. I am afraid that it is General Mu, who saved Wanyang back then, saw all this in his eyes, and has a stubborn temper. Mu, she may be like her father." "You mean that the surname Mu told the Mu family about these things?" Shu Shiniang nodded slightly. Mrs. Shu's complexion looked a little better, but she still snorted coldly, "If you are uneducated, you are uneducated. What good things can a countryman teach? I am her grandmother after all, and I dare to talk to me like that in public. Say." Xu Shiniang also felt that Mu Yangling was uneducated, but the key now is, if Mu Yangling dared to recognize the Xu family's relatives, would the Xu family dare to recognize them? Wanyang died on the way to flee south 16 years ago. If she was recognized, the reputation of the fourth house of the Xu family would be ruined, and for the sake of the reputation of the entire family, the Xu family would probably expel their fourth house.